Welcome to Big City, Small Town, the weekly podcast all about San Antonio and the people who make it go and grow. I'm your host, Bob Rivard. Today we continue our series of interviews with the leading candidates running for mayor in San Antonio. Remember, early voting gets underway Tuesday and runs through the following Tuesday. Election Day is Saturday, May 3rd. Local elections really matter, so make your vote count. Show up. Our guest today is candidate for Mayor Manny Pelaez, the District 8 City Councilman, serving his fourth and last term. Manny also is an attorney in private practice, and he's the former chairman of Brooks City-based board. He also served previously as a trustee on the board of Via Metropolitan Transit. And as he likes to point out, he was the very first employee of Toyota Manufacturing when it came here as their attorney. Manny Pelaez, welcome to Big City, Small Town.
Hola, Bob. It's nice to see you again, man.
It's good to see you. So we're asking each of the candidates, Manny, on the assumption that these polls show a lot of voter indecision or I don't know who the candidates are. Let's start by sharing your personal story.
My parents are from South America. They're immigrants who escaped South America during the late 70s, early 80s.
Colombia
in particular. And everybody knows what was happening down there and how many Americans escaped. I'm sorry, how many Colombians escaped and came here. My dad's a physician. My mom's a clinical psychologist. And they raised my brother, my sister, and I with the expectation that we would be as ferociously grateful of being here and not being there, that they harbored as well. That gratitude has been beaten into us, if you will, by my mother in particular, who insisted that gratitude is not something that you feel, but it's something you do, right? And so you all know my mom is the CEO. Marta is the CEO of the Battered Women and Children's Shelter, and she has dragged my brother, my sister, and I into service ever since we were little. And so my sister is the immediate past chairwoman for many years of Child Advocates for San Antonio. And I don't have hobbies other than just serving. And this is what gets me up in the morning, and I go to sleep thinking about how we're going to serve again tomorrow. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, and this is what a politician is supposed to say, but the proof is in the pudding, right? Because we moved around so much as children, my brother and my sister and I really didn't have roots. And we never got homesick because we always lived in different cities, Chicago, Tucson, El Paso.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Your mother's been such a long time and prominent nonprofit leader in the city. I assume that you were raised here.
No, I got here first, Trinity University in 1992.
Okay.
And then my parents visited so often that they decided this is where they're going to live next. And so my brother and my sister followed, and then my parents came. So my brother and my sister in high school lived here with me while I was in college for a little while. But my parents then finally moved here. And that's when, first year, right out of the gate, my mom started working for the Battered Women and Children's Shelter. And now she's been the CEO for more than 24 years. And, I think that my sister and I have accomplished quite a bit as far as elevating the conversation about, abuse of women and children. And I've made that a central theme of my service on city council for 8 years, right? And so I do get heat every once in a while for focusing, people's attention on the shelter programs. And people say, oh, you're just pushing your mom's charity. And I reassure people, my mom wished she didn't have to, run an agency that provides life-saving services. And I wish that one day that charity never existed because we'd worked ourselves out of a job. And so unapologetically, I focus on domestic violence to the exclusion of a lot of other things sometimes. But as far as as me,
you're a Trinity grad.
I'm a Trinity grad. That's where I met
Mary's Law
I
School.
met Ron Nierenberg there, went to St. Mary's Law, left St. Mary's Law, and my very first big accomplishment right out of the gate out of law school was I was the very first person Toyota Motor Manufacturing ever hired.
I remember that.
And my job was to close on that property, get the keys to 3,000 acres. And I was in the room, right, when it all happened. And it was thrown in the deep end. So I did all the environmental work, all the infrastructure work, the legal work, the government affairs work, the zoning, the permitting, federal, state, local, work. And it was quite the education. And because of that really neat opportunity, Nelson Wolf approached me and said, I'd like for you to serve on the VIA board. We got some problems that need solving there, and I'm happy to talk to you about those throughout the podcast. And then after that, I was asked by the city to serve on Brook City Base, and as the chairman of Brook City Base, we were asked by Cheryl Scully back then, this needs to be a tech park, right? Former Air Force Base needs to be a tech park. And I rejected that, thought that we could be a little bit better than a tech park. And so I hired Leo Gomez and put together a team that is executed on what is now a live, work, play, thrive mini city that happens to have a lot of tech on it, right? But it also has, restaurants and public art and green spaces and manufacturing and pharmaceuticals and a full service hospital. So when people told us, you'll never be able to succeed in developing all these things on the South Side because people on the South Side are poor and they don't have much cash, Leo and I said, here, hold our beer, right? Watch us make this happen. And we worked day and night to make it happen. And today there's two really cool things happening there. One, there's a full service hospital. And whereas one like that never existed on the South Side, you can finally have a heart attack or a baby on the South Side without having to drive all the way to District 8, my district on the North Side, in the medical center. And then number two, there's a medical school that is an incarnate word medical school. And the kids who are going there are San Antonians, right? Which is really special because we're creating healthcare professionals, San Antonians who are serving San Antonio's health needs. And that's Brooks, right? And think about what the South Side used to get. The South Side used to be the beneficiary of pick and pull junkyards, pawn shops, liquor stores, gun shops. And now we've proven through Brooks that there's a lot of gold to be mined in those hills down there. And now you're seeing everybody rush, to develop out the South Side. And so soon after I assumed the chairmanship, I also started working on the A&M campus, and I represented this group called Verano Group, and you know them also, and you and I worked on that project. And what we're accomplishing at Verano still is kind of amazing. It's a little slower than what was accomplished at Brooks.
But they donated the land for Texas A&M San Antonio, the campus.
3,000 acres, and is the entire Verano project, but they donated 700 acres to A&M and said we will develop out the donut, and we're going to do a Brooks concept here. And so why am I running for mayor? Bob, it's really not that, it's not that hard to tell folks the story. First, I believe that if we can do on the South Side what Brooks did, then we can do that for the entire city, right? And the one thing that we did at Brooks is we set some super high expectations. Failure was not an option, and small things were not allowed. And we proved it out, right? That San Antonio can execute on excellence. And that if you set very bold goals and work towards those goals, as opposed to incrementalism, right? And saying, well, we just need to be a little bit better, right? Than what we've got. San Antonio can deliver.
The arrival of Toyota was a very exciting time, and it was the birth of the advanced manufacturing economy for the city. And we're going to talk about that more in just a little bit. You are running for mayor. Yeah. You're also working as an attorney.
Sort of,
because I wonder, how would you balance that if elected? And I looked at your website. You have a lot of clients in a lot of different places. And can you do both? I mean, obviously what we pay the mayor and what we pay the council, even with the raise, is peanuts as far as I'm concerned, and most professionals are concerned. So I certainly understand everybody's need to often generate income outside of their city hall check. But I also wonder about, can you do a full-time job and be evangelical and representing the city all over?
Absolutely, you cannot, which is why what we've structured at my law firm is I've got a partner, I got a group of lawyers, I've got about 15 people who work there. This firm runs without me showing up, and that's how we structured it. And I am I'm so proud of that team. It's mostly moms who work there. The engine that runs that law firm is women, right? And my law partner Marco Flores has done an excellent job of managing it in my absence. And his approach to community service is to let me do it. And so he believes that the firm is a good corporate citizen by having its name partner out there doing corporate citizenship in the form of community service the way I do. And he handles He handles the day-to-day work. And so it would absolutely not work, right? If I was spending half my time worried about a business. And so I believe the mayor's job needs to be a full-time job. And like the same way with the council job, I've been doing this full-time now for a long time.
How would you, how would you be a different mayor or a similar mayor to Ron Nirenberg?
Ron, first of all, I'll start because he's going to listen to this, and he's my friend, and I love the man, right? And I think he's one of the kindest human beings I've ever met. Ron started a conversation about compassion 8 years ago, right? And the need for compassion has never been more relevant, acutely necessary than it is today, right? And because, right now, meanness and cruelty is what passes for American values, right? And I think that Ron has insisted that we lead with compassion before we lead with anything else, right? That's a conversation that I think that needs to be continued. I hear other candidates say, we need to just get back to basics, right? Well, that leaves compassion out, right? And if all we're doing is sidewalks and street repair, that's not a conversation about the humans that live here, right? And the humans that need a government that cares about them. There's another, prominent candidate, and the solution to all of society's ills is economic development and a great relationship with the governor, right?
How do we deal with that? For 5 legislative sessions now, they have been impinging on home rule, and San Antonio suffered some defeats there.
Sure.
Obviously, city versus state, we're not going to come out on the winning end of a lot of those fights. We now have the governor offering something of an olive branch with the cyber command that he made an emergency item, and the House bill is passed on that. But at the same time, they're trying to pass a bill, for example, that would change bond elections from simple majority votes to 2/3, which would really constrain cities from infrastructure development because it would limit their abilities to take on debt.
So let me answer your previous question about the difference between Ron and I, and marry it to the answer to the question you just asked me about the government. So Ron and I are very similar in that we believe, in the moral obligation to make sure that we're compassionate. Where he and I differ is that I bring a completely different set of skills, right? And I come at the problem with just a different approach. The skills that I bring is first, I was trained as a litigator, right? And my clients pay me to win, and my clients pay me to be ferocious and not put up with half measures, right? That is something I'm pretty good at it, man, right? I'm not good at much, but I'm really good at winning fights. In 8 years, I haven't lost a single fight on the dais, not one, right? But I'm also pretty punchy, right? When I see that people are trying to threaten the well-being of my constituents, trying to threaten and do a disservice to the institution, right, of city government. The only time you'll ever see me lose my cool on the dais is when somebody is bullying somebody else, right, or being dishonest. And when that dishonesty threatens our ability to deliver excellence. Where Ron and I are different is that Ron is ecumenical and sets a table for everyone, right? And Ron has this sleepy, cool radio voice, right? And I don't have those things, right? I bring ferocity to the fight, right? And so how you deal with Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton, Dan Patrick, Donald Trump, Doge, Elon Musk, Ted Cruz, is with 2 tools. On the one hand, you bring the other skill set that I have, which is a skill set of negotiation and advocacy, right? I'm a mediator, arbitrator by training, and I make deals, right? And I've got a track record of putting together really great projects and collaborating and bringing consensus together. And if those gentlemen that I just named off want to sit down and have a conversation about helping San Antonio, and if there's people in San Antonio who want to join in that conversation, and if we can all work on what makes us similar as opposed to and focus on what makes us different, right? Then you will find a friend and a collaborator and a colleague in trying to advance the best interests of the city. However, right, if you are committed to hurting vulnerable people in my city, if you are committed to eroding our ability to deliver essential services, and if you are committed to adding fire to this fire of mistrust for government, right, just for your own self-serving political desires because you think you're winning more likes online if you beat up on government, then you're going to fight with Manny Pelaez, right? And you'll meet me right? In the media, you'll meet me in court. And I think that the next mayor needs to be a wartime mayor, because these people have promised that their knives are sharpened for us, and they're proving it by cutting us every single day. We are monitoring about 2,000 bills right now. There's 12,000 bills that have been filed in this legislative session. I'm the chairman of government relations. My job is to go to Austin and advocate and tell San Antonio's story and make sure nobody messes with the success that we've already created, and nobody messes with our trajectory and the future that we want to create. My job is also to go twist arms and make it hurt to imperil San Antonio's ability to thrive. And so, like I said, I bring a different sense of ferocity. And, the editorial board, your friends over at the Express News, asked me, they're like, Manny, how do we know that you're not going to be the combative Manny Pelaez? And I was like, oh, no, I'll be combative. I was like, I think you guys are using the wrong word, though. I'll be ferocious in my advocacy and zeal in protecting San Antonio. And I was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Is this is it inevitable that our elections locally, certainly for mayor, become more partisan in nature, even though the city council is, by city charter rather, we're nonpartisan? But the fact of the matter is we now see outside money coming into the race like we've never seen before from partisan organizations and political action committees. And that's something those of you on council are seeing from two of the outside candidates. And
three of them.
Well, I'm not sure Beto's money's from the outside, but I would argue with you on that. But the larger point is it us against the Republicans? Is that how you see it in Austin and Washington?
One of the beauties of the city charter is that enshrined in the city charter is this prohibition on running partisan races, right? I love that you will not see R or D behind any of our names on the ballots. That's actually really healthy, that people remember that, there isn't, that Hardbroker Park isn't a Democrat or Republican park, right? That Confluence Park isn't a D or an R park, that potholes and stray dogs aren't D or R.
But you don't see partisanship encroaching into the political arena here.
But very much so, right? I mean, you now have Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott's lobbyist running for mayor, right? And wherever he goes, he swears fealty to Greg Abbott, right? And it's not a secret, right? His goal is to return San Antonio to a time where Republican values and conservative values ran the city, right? I'll remind you, there was once a Good Government League, right? The days of the Good Government League are viewed with some sense of nostalgia by a certain, the people who donate money to that gentleman's campaign.
To play the devil's advocate, a lot of people galvanize around his economic development agenda because they've seen post-pandemic more than 160, I think is the count, companies relocate from principally the West Coast to Texas. We've gotten one or two of those. JCB from England was a huge win for us. Sure. But most of the corporate relocations or expansions went to Austin, Dallas, and Houston.
So that's where I push back on you, right? And so I think that he's doing an excellent job of, and I just want to name him, right? Rolando Pablos is doing an excellent job of convincing people that San Antonio sucks, right? And that it will suck a lot less if he shows up, right? And brings all the jobs. The reality is that in the last 4 years, we've created 16,700 really high-paying jobs, $6.6 billion in capital expenditures, right? We're the fastest growing economy in all of Texas. And that's because Jenna Saucedo Herrera, her board over at Greater SATX, our local chambers of commerce, the job I do as the chairman of economic development at the city, the job that Leo Gomez does, but Jim Pershbach does. We have worked our asses off at creating a soft landing spot for businesses to expand. And whenever we're at debates and I say 16,700, right? Rolando and his friends swat that away and saying, we all know that that's not true. Our gut, it tells you that, and I get it. In political campaigns, you peddle bullshit every once in a while, right? But you can certainly debate whether we're succeeding or not, but you can't refute it, right? We're succeeding, right? And yesterday, Jenna announced that it looks like for 2025, we're going to add an additional 15,000 jobs, right? Right now, I'm working on a deal on the South Side that I think is going to succeed, and we're going to be making a major announcement.
Go ahead right now, Manny. This is your opportunity.
500 new jobs, biotech jobs, starting at around $24-25 an hour. And the people that they want to hire are right out of community colleges and high schools, right? You don't even need a PhD, right, to work in these sterile environment biolabs. Some pretty amazing technology aimed at diabetes, wound care, burn care, and I'm pretty close to making that a reality, that we can roll it out. I'm the only council member that I can think of in the history of city council that's actually brought economic development deals to the city, that I go out and get, right? And so this idea, right, that San Antonio is terrible and therefore I will come in and save it, is what many candidates peddle, right? And they peddle it in two ways. One, they tell you, we're too fat, we're too lazy, we're too jobless, we're too illiterate, we all have diabetes, we've got a domestic violence problem, and we don't deserve nice things until we fix those, right? And therefore,
those are real issues.
Yeah.
Not to be
but what city doesn't have
unserious about them?
But what city doesn't have them, right? Which city can you point to that is the Shangri-La that is devoid of any challenges, right? Whereas I bring a different worldview to this, which is we are amazing, right? And we've proven to a lot of different companies that we're amazing, and they come here because we're amazing, and we produce for them from our colleges and universities the kind of employees that solve problems and that really care about, you know, the company that takes a chance on them, right? And we produce them a lot of profit, right? And we produce a lot of quality of life for their executives. And yes, what city doesn't have problems? But if we all work together as a perfect collective of people focused on solving these problems, we'll get there, right? The competing worldview is San Antonio sucks and it'll always suck, and therefore we don't deserve nice things until we stop making it suck, and I will be the one who comes in and makes it not suck anymore, right? And I'm just sick and tired of elected officials coming in here and trying to convince us, literally convincing us that we're not as good as Austin, we're not as good as Dallas, we're not as good as Houston. I believe that we've got everything we need in order to make those cities green with envy and how we solve problems and how we take care of each other and how, you know, we thrive, right? So, and why do I believe that? Because I did it at Brooks, right? Brooks is now one of the most frequently benchmarked communities from other cities on how to do redevelopment of blighted areas. And there's a reason for that, because we did it right now. Of the 27 candidates, Rob, I'm the only one that's worked on from beginning to end multi-billion-dollar development projects. I'm the only one that's brought economic development deals to the San Antonio. I'm the only one that has actually got the subject matter expertise and the track record, and the only one who is speaking in terms of best. Everybody else is speaking in terms of, I want to be incrementally better, right? And better than the last election.
I want to jump in and ask you more about the election. You've been on the council for 8 years. Why hasn't the council changed the operating rules for getting on the ballot? And now you talk about something that discourages voter participation. Putting 27 names on a ballot, nearly 20 of them, 19 of them are unknown to people. They're not campaigning vigorously. They're not raising money. They're not capable of anything like mounting yard signs or sending out mailers or showing up at forums and debates. And yet anybody with $100 can get on the ballot and say they've run for mayor in San Antonio, and voters are going to go into the polls and look at a computer screen, and that's going to have 12 names, and then the next screen's going to have 12 names, and then finally the poor guys that drew the black bean for the last three. I don't know what number you are in that mix, but it seems patently unfair to the serious candidates that are campaigning to run an election like this.
I'm less concerned with the well-being of the serious candidates, right? I'm more concerned with what is fair and isn't fair to the general populace. And you and I, before the camera started rolling, we're talking about, you know, this era of misinformation and the low-informed, the less-informed constituent, right? The less-informed San Antonio. We made a huge mistake in not fixing this because I don't think anybody anticipated this problem. The barrier to entry into a mayoral race is $100. Right? It should be $0. However, it should be that fee should be replaced with a requirement to show up with 1,000 signatures of registered voters, right? Do the work first, right? And go talk to your neighbors. And if you can get 1,000 of them to sign a petition saying, you know, candidate, you have convinced me that you got some good points, I will back you. That should be the barrier to entry. And by the way, this is not a novel thought. This is what local judges do in order to get on the ballot, right? Put in the work, do a little sweating before you are allowed to put your name in the ballot. I think that that's democracy at work. I think that's fair. And it won't deny people who are short on cash the opportunity to throw their hat in the ring. But what we've got right now is the height of absurdity.
Do you think the number of people running has caused the campaign to be more contentious as people try to get the attention of voters? Listening to your comments about Rolando, they're quite pointed. We had Melissa Cabello Havada in here, District 6 Councilwoman. She calls you La Chancla, the flip-flopper.
Fear the chancla, man. My mom used to throw them, and you ought to be afraid of La Chancla.
I mean, this is a little bit different than past campaigns.
Yeah.
To this observer.
Yeah, probably, right? But also, I think compared to last campaigns, we're a big city now, right? We're living in a time of social media where exchanging insults like Melissa does, passes for their idea of informed speech. She's got a First Amendment right to be an idiot, but I don't have to punch down much more than saying that. I think we can keep this race classy. I've done a pretty excellent job, I believe, at talking about issues and talking about what separates me from other people. But I will tell you that there's some problems, right, with some of the candidates. I believe Gina Ortiz-Jones. Where the hell have you been, Gina? Right? I mean,
she's had a long career in Washington.
Yeah, great. But when Storm Uri was freezing people and killing people here locally, right, the rest of us were out there handing out wood and blankets and water and food, right? And by the way, this long career in Washington ended, right? And we've had some very serious moments here in San Antonio that required all hands on deck. And I never saw Beto, I never saw Rolando, I never saw Gina out in the neighborhoods. So Johnny come latelys suddenly, saying, I've got a great idea on how to run San Antonio. Where's the sweat equity, right? I mean, talk is cheap, right? And don't judge me by my words, right? I mean, if you want to, judge me by my words, judge me by my actions. And judge me by the volunteering that we do on the weekend and the trash pickups. I mean, 21 tons of trash is what we've picked up in 8 years, me and my team and my volunteers, me. And filling up a trailer and towing my pickup truck around neighborhoods, dropping off goods for Afghan refugees and the Syrian refugees that live in my district, digging up myself with my own shovel and my own gloves, digging up, the nasty human filth that we're finding in encampments near schools, and removing hypodermic needles. And so, I appreciate the 100-day plan or whatever bullshit they have on their website, but those are cheap, right? Every politician has a 100-day plan. Give me a break, right? Show me you're a San Antonian, and those three aren't, and they're just not, right? And I have very little respect for people that are trying to buy the race.
That is clear.
Yeah, I don't care. And so here, by the way, I somehow get in trouble with my campaign manager, and then I get in trouble with the Express News, and there's some goofball at the San Antonio Current that, it clutches his pearls every time I say something provocative. And what I've been telling people is, if I'm mayor, go buy yourself a barrel of pearls. You're going to be clutching them a lot because I have no patience for half measures, and I have no patience for mealy mouth promises that aren't delivered, and I just don't have patience for banalities and insipidness.
Let's go from politics to some of the key programs and issues that are in play right now, and I want to ask you about some of the signature initiatives under Mayor Nirenberg and whether you think they should be continued, discontinued, moderated. Let's start with Ready to Work, which was launched with very high ambitions. We never were able to meet the number of people in the pipeline or even the hourly wages we hope to achieve, but everybody agrees workforce development is a serious challenge in the city. What would you do with that program if you were mayor?
Where we had found the most success with Ready to Work is by identifying the company who has an internal training program that provides workers with portable skills, lifetime portable skills, and trains them in-house, right? So Standard Aero comes to us and says, we want to train up, hundreds of employees to get these certifications that are relevant to this industry. Instead of you, city bureaucrats training them, please invest in our program and we will train them. That's worked. The second thing that's worked incredibly well is apprenticeships in the trades. And so, getting people to be apprentices in welding, plumbing, electrician work, that has paid off dramatically, right? And we know now with about $1 trillion in bipartisan infrastructure act money coming in, MPO money, bond projects, this upcoming city budget, those jobs are there. And now more than ever, we're needing trades. And so what hasn't worked, to my satisfaction, is just saying, we'll train you on anything you want to train. Please, here's the website, sign up, and you just got to put in, 6 months, a year, 2 years of training and stick with it. And our success is measured by how many jobs you land, we manage to help them land, and then how long they stay at the job. It's a very well-intentioned program, right? But cities are not job creators, right? Cities are job creation facilitators, right? And what we ought to do is get out of the way of these businesses and help invest in them so that they can be the experts that they already are, which is hiring and training people internally, right? So can you imagine going to Toyota and saying, we will train, all of your engineers or your paint shop guys or your robotics repair guys? That's silly, right? And yet that's what we've been pitching. And the people who work at Ready to Work, they're good people, Bob. They really are trying to solve this problem. Everybody involved in this is trying to solve the problem. But I think we need to modify the program to go in the direction that we know works.
Okay. Let me ask you about the housing bond, because voters supported the council and Mayor Nierenberg and in 2022 approved a $150 million housing bond. That was a first. That, again, is a city not building housing per se, but it seems to be partnering very successfully with private sector entities, and that seems to be going well. And I'm making an assumption that if we continue in that direction, the 2027 bond would probably have an even larger housing bond, or I understand City Manager Eric Walsh is even considering a city housing bond for the November election. I don't know where that stands. You may know more about that than I do.
It's too early for us to be designing the housing bond or, for that matter, any bond package. But it has been a conversation that needed to happen 20, 30 years ago that we're having today. And it's okay that it didn't happen 20, 30 years ago, right? Nobody anticipated we'd be in this crisis, but we're in this crisis, right? And we have an obligation to solve. I will tell you that Donald Trump is, after his last election, took a victory lap and was bragging that he delivered on the promise of saving suburbs from having to live next to poor people. By not allowing tax credit properties near suburbs, right? And that he was proud of it, right? And so nobody should be surprised that the federal government is again going to demonstrate a lack of interest in investing in housing, and it's going to be leaving it up to states and cities. And we have an obligation to look out for the people that are unhoused, because when they become unhoused, they cost us a lot more than keeping them housed and providing them, a safe, clean place. And so I believe in the bond program. I think it was wildly popular. I think San Antonio understands that the investment needs to be made. There's a business case for it. And, I would advocate for more investment in housing.
Okay. Let's talk about the airport, Manny. We had the airport executive director, Jesus Saenz, on the podcast some time ago, and I shared what I think is widespread concern over the Southwest Airlines lawsuit against the city and how that looks not only here, but around the state and beyond nationally. Jesus assured us at the time that we were good friends with Southwest, that it would be resolved, not to worry about it, don't make a big deal. And 2 or 3 days later, both sides said mediation efforts had broken down and the lawsuit was going to proceed. And we felt like what we had just heard from Jesus was frankly very disingenuous. And if anything, it seemed like this standoff is intensified. What would you do about that?
Remember when I started this conversation, I told you I was a litigator first. I've litigated bigger cases than this. This is one of those cases that can, should, and will eventually settle. With
collateral damage along the way, though.
Yeah, that's right. And I can tell you, having looked at all the underlying documents, I can tell you that, having gone back and analyzed, the city's dealings with Southwest, I really don't see any way of making a case that somehow we were nefariously dishonest and, disingenuous in our dealings with them. The one story that's not getting told about, and it's a boring story, and I'm sorry, I'm going to bore you with a little bit right now. Southwest is going through a civil war on its board, right? So its board, its board chair and other board members were under attack by an activist investor who is, buying up lots and lots of shares of Southwest, and they put a poison pill in there to keep, this guy from taking over the company. But in the end, he managed to put new board members on this board, and their mission is to recreate Southwest into a Frontier or Spirit Airlines. They have declared that Southwest can no longer occupy this space of not being as cheap as those airlines and being cheaper than Delta, right? They can't. He doesn't want them to exist in the middle, right? So what they did is they've got a gun to their CEO's head, and his job is on the chopping block, right? If he doesn't dramatically reduce costs. And so you should know that they haven't just picked a fight with us, but they've also picked a fight with a lot of other airports around the nation, saying you charge us too much. We need to renegotiate our leases, and threatening lawsuits and FAA complaints. And so this comes at around the same time as this civil war on their board. And so I think this is a product of a new day at Southwest Airlines, where they're dramatically slashing costs. And here's what they've said. We will never leave San Antonio. We will never leave. Of course they won't leave San Antonio, right? We're essential to their success. We're symbiotic. Our success is theirs and theirs is ours. The way I've been framing it, and I believe it to be true, is that mom and dad are in a fight, but we still have to make breakfast for the kids tomorrow. In this case, it'll settle. And I'm not surprised that they sued. I'm not surprised that they went to the FAA. It's a strategy. I think it's a failing strategy, but they're pulling from every lever to try to pressure airports. And so right now, the legal department for Southwest and the legal department for Austin's airport are engaged in a fight where their horns are locked. And that too will, take its course, and eventually everything will settle down because it has to, right?
Okay, completely different subject. You were newer to the council at the time. But in 2019, we passed the San Antonio Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. Yeah. It's a plan without metrics or milestones, dates, firm deadlines. Most of us think it's a plan that mostly is just gathered dust on the shelf, and that we look at all the obvious metrics. Air quality is continuing to decline. Traffic congestions is getting worse by the year. Asthma in both adults and adolescents is getting worse. We still have an inadequate public transit system that's underfunded. That's no criticism of the people that have been running it. I just don't think they have the public funds that they need to really substantially improve mass transit in our city. We've seen the state make reluctant investments in the energy grid, even though our energy utility is strong. I think our water utility is strong, but we've seen the state not do very much on that front. That may be changing this session. So we also have a lot of people, particularly in the oil and gas industry, that want to continue to argue that there are not serious climate change issues. The state is no longer incentivizing renewables the way they are the oil and gas industry. And a lot of people are, I think, still arguing that it's not, human activity that's causing climate change, and it doesn't need to be addressed. And against that background, it seems like city government's been frozen.
So you went to my firm's law firm, my firm's website, my law firm. You'll notice that the one thing the firm dedicates more attention to than anything else is climate change litigation. We represent people and companies and school districts and governments who have been damaged by mega storms, right? And the reality is that mega storms are the new normal. Like I said earlier, you can debate it, you just can't refute it, right? And if you want proof, right, everybody's premium is going up. It's not going up because climate change isn't happening.
And the insurance companies say that climate's changing,
right? And car companies will tell you, oh, it's changing, right? And they know that they're significantly responsible for this. At the same time, yesterday or day before yesterday, the morons at the legislature passed a bill that makes it harder for us to invest in solar and wind, making it almost impossibly expensive to develop a solar project that is more than 10 megawatts, right? And all so that they can demonstrate their fealty to oil companies and coal companies, right? Not because they really care about the cleanliness of water and asthma and all the other things that you mentioned. And so we have some very powerful winds in our face that challenge everything that a city does to try to be cleaner and healthier, including this, what do you call it, the Death Star bill, HB 2127, that was passed in the last legislative session and is stuck in courts right now, which basically said cities cannot regulate anything that is mentioned in any statute, right? Like, what? And basically, making cities, large cities, zones of chaos, right? And I mean, anarchy, right? And so we are faced with an onslaught of attacks from Austin and DC, which is why I said earlier we need a wartime mayor. But as it relates to the climate adaptation change, I remember I was in the room with the CEO of one of our big oil companies here. And he sat me down and he says, Manny, if the climate adaptation plan gets voted on, I am taking my company out of San Antonio. I will move to Dallas or Houston, right? You are going to ruin the oil and gas business. And I was like, really? Are we? Right? are just by trying to make the water a little cleaner, the air a little cleaner, trying to increase our investment in solar and wind, are we really? And so it has been attacked as if it's, this boogeyman, right? That is going to be wiping out, an entire sector of the economy. And that hyperbole is really quite intentionally been designed to scare people into staying away from this. We didn't get much help from the chambers of commerce. They also, bought into this hyperbolic, fear mongering. But I will challenge you in painting the entire effort as a failed endeavor. We have now invested more in solar than in the history of the city. We're now partnering with energy battery companies that do, energy storage. I'm negotiating right now a deal on the south side that will include some really, really green energy to power data centers. And a lot of this effort wouldn't have happened without the buy-in from the CPS board, SAWS board, and the city and the county leaning into this climate adaptation plan. So it's not a complete failure. It's certainly imperfect, but where I do think the climate adaptation plan worked is its bold planting of a flag saying this is our North Star and we're headed in that direction. Whereas if no goals are set, well then you never know if you're succeeding. More metrics were needed in the climate adaptation plan. I get it. You're right. And it's an imperfect plan designed by imperfect people, but it's better than no plan. And one way you guarantee getting nothing is to plan for nothing.
Will you dust that plan off and take a fresh look at it?
I will, because there's certain things that have worked, right? And there's certain things that are just, not going to work because we live in Texas, right? And we've got people out there who think that, any mention of wanting cleaner water or cleaner air is of the devil.
Train to Austin would be nice.
Yeah. That's, I was asked recently that, what are you going to do with Austin? Will you negotiate with Austin to do a train between Austin and San Antonio? And what I keep telling people is, even if Austin said yes, right? And they said, we'll pay for all of it, right? The challenge isn't getting Austin to agree to it, right? San Antonio and Austin, there's just one terminal point and another terminal point. Try to build a train through Seguin, Schertz, right? Kyle, all these other little cities in between that are so committed to fighting wokeness, fighting anything that is green, right? And it's almost a matter of religious faith, right? That anything that is green is bad. So that if we propose it, I'm not sure that you're going to win over the leaders of these
communities would want some relief of the congestion that's freezing I believe some I-35.
Of those communities will. I think others are led with with demagogues who would rather be allegiant to their tribes than actually solve problems. And we're seeing that play out everywhere.
We're running out of time, Manny, but I don't want the session to end without asking you how you regard, at this point in time, Project Marble and bringing the Spurs from the east side to the back to hemisphere.
Woe to any politician who thinks that seeing the Spurs leave San Antonio will have no consequences. When we travel internationally to recruit companies to come here, you know what the CEOs want to talk about first? Is the Spurs.
Probably Wemby.
Wemby. And is Manu still in town? And the Spurs are a reputation enhancer that has helped us create jobs and investment, right? And the Spurs also help us attract the best of the best doctors to the medical center, the best engineers to Toyota, the best engineers to Sweary, and faculty to UTSA. Believe it or not, there is no number you can put to that, right? And so this dishonest analysis that my friends at the Express News do, and others when saying there is no economic proof, right? Economists all say that stadium deals don't pencil out. Yeah, so long as you dishonestly ignore the intangibles, yeah, sure. Right. And it sells papers and gets clicks, but it's mendacious. Right?
We would be a sad city the day after the Spurs left. A very different city and a much diminished city, in my opinion.
The other thing is there's this intangible pride in your city. Right. What are we? We're a city that is proud of the Alamo. We're a city that has an identity with Fiesta. Right. With our zip code. Everybody talks about Puto 210 this and 210 that. Right. And the Spurs. How many people you see walking around, right, with their Spurs shirt who probably can't afford a single Spurs ticket, and yet they are faithful to their core. It is their identity. Right. HEB is thrown in there also. Right. And so if we were to lose the Spurs, we also take a major gut punch to city pride and morale. That has a value, right? Lastly, I think that we do need to return downtown to San Antonians. This investment in tourism has been great for business, but terrible for people enjoying one of their most important assets. And so I think we've done a good job with Hemisphere, the Briscoe Museum, and all these new assets downtown, including the baseball stadium. And I think that we can elegantly and responsibly do a deal for the entirety of Project Marvel. I think Alamo Dome needs to be, that pig needs a lot more lipstick on it, right? I think the convention center, there's no argument to be made for not investing in the convention center and making that eastern part of Hemisphere more vibrant. Where I do think the next mayor is going to have to lean in is in the difficult conversation with the east side. So the way I remember it, and you were around too, I was lied to. I was in Trinity University when this was sold to us in 2000, what? I forget, 27 years ago.
Early aughts.
Yeah, early aughts. And we were lied to. I mean, they did promise us. The San Antonio report used to be Rivard report, but they did a story, right? And they went back and looked at all the things that were being said, and they promised us an economic renaissance on the east side. They promised us that this would be, a zone of activity, and that there would be this hotels and bars and restaurants, et cetera.
Was that unrealistic from the very beginning, Manny, in what amounts to a light industrial zone where you've got Coca-Cola trucks and everything else over there on I-35?
Clearly it was, right? In hindsight, it was. But if you want proof that they lied to us, on day one, right, they put in place a reality that made it impossible for any investment to happen. They sent an army of sheriff's deputies to snarl at you and yell at you and chase you out of that area as soon as the game ends, right? If the county really wants there to be investment, then you would create some sort of welcoming environment for people to linger, right? And so even if, right, it may not have been the best site, we didn't even give it a chance, right? You've been to the games. It's miserable. The minute you leave the game, you have a hostile police force out there kicking you out of the zone. If I was trying to create investment and I said, Bob, I know you got a few $1 million. Let's build a little micro, brewery down there, and let's put a little entertainment district with restaurants and coffee shops. And then I took you to have that experience. You say, no way. Are you kidding me? How am I ever supposed to land a customer if they're getting chased out by law enforcement? They lied to us, man. And the east side has every right to feel lied to. And we need to have a conversation about, the consequences of those lies. And we also need to have a conversation about how that anger and that sense of betrayal cannot impede our ability to look into the future and improve the city. And I think both things can be done at once. I do think, however, like many of the candidates are saying, the Spurs are owned by billionaires, and they ought to pay for the bricks and sticks to make their own stadium. We have the responsibility to take care of infrastructure anyway. We have the responsibility to increase capacity at the convention center, make sure that the Alamo Dome is healthy, revitalize that eastern part of Hemisphere. But I do understand the public's frustration with saying, wait, you're going to give Michael Dell and, the Holt family my tax dollars, right, so that they can make money, and we're not even going to get a percentage of the profits from Spurs games. Like, how does that make any mathematical sense in the mind of the voters? And I have to look them in the eye and say, it makes no mathematical sense, right? And I think the Spurs and the county are going to have to lift a lot in order to get this stadium deal done, and I think it'll get done. But if we don't do it, just ask Oakland how it feels about losing the Raiders and the A's to Las Vegas. It is very real, that threat, and the Spurs don't have to make an explicit threat, right? That threat is out there, and the unspoken threat is palpable, right? And so we have to guard against losing the Spurs.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there in the interest of equity and fairness to the other candidates, but we appreciate you coming on, and we'll invite we think a runoff's inevitable. I think most candidates think a runoff is inevitable, and we'll certainly invite the runoff candidates back onto the podcast when we shrink it down from 27 to 2.
All right, man. I'll see you then.
Thanks for coming on to Big City, Small Town.
I love you, Bob. Seriously, you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Manny Pelaez. Please share this episode with friends and colleagues, and do sign up for Monday Musings, our weekly newsletter, at bigcitysmalltown.com. Big City Small Town is brought to you by Weston Urban, building the city our children want to call home, and Geekdom, where startups are born and smart ideas become businesses. Our producer is Corey Ames, video by Erica Rempel, and sound engineering by Alfie De La Garza of Sound Crane Audio. We will see you next week.